today's exciting. We are interviewing Sky Solbach, who is an old friend of mine. And as you probably guessed from if you watched the last episode with Andre Philippe, he mentioned that one of his early on rivals was Sky Solbach. And I figured this is a perfect opportunity to reconnect with Sky. So he should be jumping on any second now. For those of you who don't know Sky Solbach, he is probably one of the longest career running professional riders in that he started as a professional athlete and has stayed really in the industry, I believe, um, ever, for over 20 years now, not really taking a break, going into designing surfboards for, I believe, his own brand and then on to Duotone. So somebody who really has been a key figure in the sport for his entire life. So I think he's jumping in right now.
Hello.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, what's up, man?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Let me see if this works here.
Oh,
There we go. Now I'm on.
epic. So,
Yeah.
I have being a dad. You probably have not picked up on this since it's only been going on a week, but I have been randomly interviewing people in the wind sport industry as a part of a podcast series called John's Impulsive Interviews. Um,
Okay.
and so, a couple nights ago, I had Andre Philippe on,
Oh,
and
no.
got to catch up with him, and he revealed something that I did not know, which is one of the great things about doing this, in that he really considered you his first rival
Oh,
back
boy.
in the Caribbean competition days. And so I figured you have to be my next guest, and it just so happens you were available. So sorry for bombarding you with this out of nowhere,
All good.
but yeah.
Yeah, all good.
I already gave you a bit of an intro as far as a background and who you are right before you joined, and I think pretty much everyone knows you. And being that you've been effective, and correct me, but from my understanding, you've really been in this industry without any break since you were a teenager.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, uh, yeah, I started kiting when I was 18, I guess, around 2000. Geez, when did I start kiting? 99, 2000. And then just started competing. I competed against Andre. So it was my first, just to go back to the Andre Phillip thing, it was my first ever contest. And I think it was his first too. Mistake me if, or correct me if I'm mistaken. But, so it was in St. Martin in the Caribbean. It was a St. Martin challenge or something like that, SXM challenge. And he beat me in the final. We both got to the finals. Both our first contests. He won. I got second. And then we both went on to compete. Yeah, later on. And then yeah, I've been in the industry ever since. I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
And you both have had wildly successful careers in the industry, and one of the things he mentioned was winning that event was what gave him confidence to kind of go to the next one. So you know
Yeah.
without Sky there might not have been an Andre as far as the is
I think
concerned.
he would have done just fine without me being there. But thanks for saying that.
So and so you've had a couple different roles now too, right? You went from when did you really consider your athlete side of your job dwindle down to a point where like that wasn't the primary focus? Because I know that it wasn't like a clean, like, oh, one day you're doing this and one day you're doing that. There was probably a kind of a gray area.
Yeah, I guess it was just kind of a progression, I guess. Like I started as a team, started competing and, got sponsored and, just kind of went through that whole thing and competed for as long as I felt like I could do well. And then luckily at the time when I was sort of, not able to compete at the highest level anymore, I started getting more and more involved in R&D. And then it just kind of was a transition. And eventually I was able to, I think that transition is more like about sort of letting your ego go a little bit and realize like, okay, I'm not going to be the world champion guy anymore, and whatever. And then you just kind of yeah, you let your ego go a little bit and then focus on other things. So that was how that was a years long transition to
Okay.
so get into that.
And Andre
Yeah.
talked a lot about how competing was fun and everything for a while, but wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily his favorite thing. Did you really love competing for a time, or was that just sort of a thing you felt like you needed to do in the mix?
I think it was kind of both. I think it was kind of like at the time when I started, it's probably like most young athletes doing any sport. It's just like you're always looking to the next event. It's the one thing you can do to kind of get on the map is to compete. So when I started, it was like, okay, what contests are out there? What which ones can I get to? How am I going to compare against the other guys, and then just sort of work your way up the ladder. And it was always just the next thing. You finish one contest, okay, on to the next one. It's just like sort of the next goal was always the next contest, and then that's just how you begin. I think that's the best way to get a foothold in the sport, I think.
Yeah, and I think it felt like it was a little more. I mean, for me, I actually was. I feel like my generation, just being, I kind of came up under you guys, where I really, I got to grow up with kiteboarding magazines and aspire to go to the events. I feel like you and
Yeah.
some of the early stage people sort of, you just did it. There wasn't really a lot there. It just sort of happened all at once, it seemed. Or did you feel like there was more of a progression at that time too?
I mean, I think no matter what stage you're at, it's funny. It's funny now looking back. Like I think I've said this in interviews with other people before. Like people have said, "Oh, you were there in the early days," but when I showed up on the scene, it at that time it didn't seem like the early days. Like there were already other established names at the time, and I was the young guy. I was the new kid, and I was just trying to make a name for myself. So I think whatever stage you're at, that's just like kids now that are coming into the sport, they see all this history before them, and they're just trying to make a name for themselves. So at the time, I was doing that as well, and it was just that's just what you do. So it's funny now to be called like a pioneer or one of the early guys or whatever, because there were so many people that came before me. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's I maybe need to like even get a an infographic together with like some of the big groups of people because yeah, no, you're right. I think if I really think about it, I do know that there was a small group, but in my eyes, it was everyone before me was again, I guess that's how everyone feels. Is like everyone before them is that before group, but
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at the time when I came into it, there was like I had a few magazines. I think it was Kiteboarding Magazine or whatever it was at the time. And that was pretty much the only info I really had. That was my only window into the sport, was just these few magazines, and I, devour those things. As soon as a new magazine came out, I would check all the pictures and here's Flash Austin and Robbie, and they're doing this in Maui. And it was just like as much information as you could possibly get. And then the PKRA tour started, and I would follow that, and then I wanted to get on tour as quickly as I could and compete against these guys. And it was just like, I think it's the same thing that kids are doing now, except that we have, then now there's Instagram and everyone has it at their fingertips, and you can see all the latest moves that people are doing. And it's just like,
yeah,
yeah, it's,
12
it's
seconds
cool.
after they happen.
Yeah.
You
It's
don't have to
crazy.
wait like the 1 month um to get the photo processed and send it to the magazine, and then the 3 months for them to put it in the mag and print it, and then the 2 months for them to ship it out to everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Now the progression is just instantaneous. Like someone lands a trick in Tarifa, and then the next day, someone on the other side of the world, trying the double. Like lately, I've seen all these people trying double kite loops. Like that's the new thing, and it's just like exploding, and the big air is going crazy, and yeah,
Yeah, so
it's cool.
what do you think? So yeah, I guess that's a good. Andre had some thoughts on that, on where we've kind of ended up with big air, and in my mind, like I don't even know what big air means anymore because it's sort of a mixed bag of old school, new school, kite loops, strapless. I mean, they're depending on who you're talking to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about where it is today? Do you feel like this is a bit of a now a refined style that's here to stay, or do you feel like we're going to see some massive changes in the next coming years, or have we, as kiteboarders, have we finally started to kind of actually narrow in on something that's going to be known for what we are for the future here?
I have no idea. I mean, I think I've been asked this in the past, and I've probably come up with some stupid answer like, "Oh, what we're doing now is what it's going to be forever," and then it changes, or I don't know. I think it's just a progression. Like I think it's really cool. I see all this. I'm like you. I'm far removed from that. I ride a strapless surfboard every day and ride waves, and that's kind of my that's my style of riding. So to see these guys doing like crazy giant air where they come down and break both legs, and I can't even. I can't even relate to that anymore. I used to think I could relate to that, but I mean, it's cool. It's radical. It's another, it's just another offshoot of the sport, another thing to do, and I don't know. Yeah, it seems like it's here to stay. I mean, I see all these kids doing crazy stuff. It's pretty radical. So we'll see where it goes. I guess that's my best answer, to see where it goes, because I think
Yeah.
that's always been the cool thing about kiteboarding, is that you can ride a hydrofoil and cruise. You can ride a surfboard. You can ride waves. You ride with foot straps or without foot straps. You can do big air. It's pretty much up to the user to decide what is fun for them. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
for the first episode we had Bruno, the godfather of kiteboarding. And do you know how to pronounce it correctly? He did a really great job of it.
Who are you talking about?
Bruno.
Bruno. You remind me his last name?
Oh yeah, no, I can't pronounce it, and I
I'm
feel
totally
too bad.
blanking on it right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
you know who we're talking.
Legano.
Yeah,
Bruno Legano. Yeah, or Legaggio, or whatever people call him. Yeah.
he did.
I call him Bruno Legano.
In the interview, I was like, "Hey, Bruno, can you pronounce this correctly?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to try that." And he did it like in the French sort of proper way, and he was great. He was really awesome. It was a really cool opportunity to talk to him. But one of the things he said was, diversity is a good thing, and
Right.
and that's really a defining feature of kiteboarding. Is, like you said, you can ride whatever you want, and yeah, I mean, never in a million years would I have guessed that there'd be an incorporation of mega loops and board offs and everything in between. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, to me, the more of blending these things is great. I mean, it's great to see such a. I mean, not to knock any one thing, but I think when tour events got super hyper focused on just accomplishing one thing, and that was very disconnected from what the everyday guy would do. I don't think that was the ideal scenario. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think everyone can. I mean, that's one thing. I think one positive you can say about big air is everyone can relate to someone going huge and sending it. That's pretty universal.
yeah,
So, yeah, in any
intentionally or
sport.
not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we want it to be
Yeah.
intentional. So I know you write everything because you have to. You're designing, testing, all that. But what do you write for fun now? Do you do strapless freestyle for fun, or do you do waves, or are you, between being a dad and testing? Is there not so much just Sky having a good time?
There's definitely not as many days as just me having a good time. But normally, I mean, I would say 90% of the time I go kiting, I'm testing something. That it doesn't mean that I'm not. Oh, sorry,
There
I'm
you
running out of battery.
go.
Am I
Uh-oh.
there? Okay, my low battery just flashed. It doesn't mean that I'm not having fun when I'm testing stuff. Like, I'll have a pile of surfboards that I need to go test, and of course that's super fun because that's what I would do for fun anyways. But I get to call it work. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't really do much strapless freestyle. I do a little bit, but mainly just riding waves. Like, if I had to choose my perfect conditions, it would be, big waves, side shore, strong wind, and riding a strapless surfboard in, good down the line conditions. That would be like the perfect day for me. So I still ride a twin tip occasionally and go, depending on what we're testing. If we're testing a kite that needs to be jumped, I'll go jump and do big air and kite loops and stuff. I mean, not at the level of what some of these guys do anymore, but I can still sort of chuck a big kite loop. But yeah, mainly riding a strapless surfboard, riding waves. That's my go-to.
Yeah, that makes one of us. I thought the other day I did a reasonably decent kite loop, and a friend of mine, unbeknownst to me, took a video of it, and he was like, "Oh, watch!" And I was like, "Oh, cool, cool." And then I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, that's not cool. I don't. Please delete that." It was really
Oh
embarrassing.
well, as long as you're having fun, that's all that
Oh, I
counts.
definitely had fun. More fun until I saw it.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so um, what I mean to this is something I think about this a lot. I don't know why I have a weird brain, I guess, but if you were gonna think of like the defining moment of your kiting career, like when you think back of like, this was kiteboarding for me, this time, this place, this event, is there any like one or two moments or events, demos, travel stories just fun trips or anything like that that really stands out? Like, oh, that was, if I could go back and relive that moment, that's where I would be.
Oh man, good question. I mean, there certainly were times that I felt, just the first part of that question, sort of defining moments or times that stood out. I think there were times where I felt really competitive. Like in my early competitive career, like I'd show up at an event and feel like I knew I was going to win the event. Like that was my mindset going into it. And then I think later, so that was just to be in that mindset at that time was a pretty special time, I think, in my kiteboarding career. Where, I mean, I'm not saying that I showed up and necessarily won the event, but that was my mindset. Like I would get there and I was like pumping my kite before my heat, going, "I'm going to win this heat," and I'm like, and I did win some contests, but that was just my mindset at the time. So that was pretty special. And then I think later in my career, there were younger guys that were, getting better, and then I didn't have that same feeling anymore, and that just sort of faded. But that was a really special time, I think, when I was able to show up to an event and sort of feel that fire and that spark. That was pretty amazing. And then just yeah, just I would say the years I spent in Australia were really special, like between 2005 and 2010 and that sort of time frame. Just the kites we were developing at the time, and just I was really excited about strapless surfboard riding at that time. That was kind of like coming of age. Well, at least for me, that was like my all encompassing focus was riding waves and strapless surfboards, and just a lot of really special sessions and time spent there chasing waves up and down the west coast of Australia. That was really amazing. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say those are two sort of times in the last 20 years that really stand out for me.
All
Yeah.
right, so I gotta get to Australia. That's what you're saying.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a good place. Yeah.
um, yeah, I was thinking about. I have a list. I just have so many good memories. I talked to Andre about one or two with him, and I'll say that with you and Christine, when I was in Texas. I don't know if you know this, but one of the first times I met you was at that event. It was one of the Velocity games. I forget what year. I think it was 2004. I think it was the second one they had. I actually skipped my high school graduation to go to that event.
Nice.
But you and Kristen were ridiculously nice to me and helpful. I don't know. There was like a day or two when I think most of the Cabrina team were. I forget what was going on. There was like two guys going back to the airport and stuff. I had nothing to do. You guys were just awesome, amazing. For me, generally the community of kiteboarders was always just so helpful, nice. I was, between when I was like 16 and 18, and everyone was just so, watching over everybody, helping everyone out. It was competitive, but in a good, friendly, competitive way. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are the good old days of competing. That was, it was cool back then because it was a relatively small group of people. Like everyone knew everyone,
Yeah.
and we'd show up to events like that, and it was always fun just to show up at an event and see all the familiar faces and get to hang out with everyone. And then, of course, you put on your competition face on the day of the event, but it was always really fun to hang out with everyone and go to the parties. And yeah, that was awesome.
All right. So if the tour throws on a wave riding event, and they have a veterans division for guys like me and you, where would you want that to be?
That's funny to think of us as veterans, first of all, but I hope they wouldn't put me in like the seniors category or veterans category or something. I just want to compete with everyone.
I think
But
grandmaster is the appropriate term. That I would be more than happy to go in that division.
the Masters. Man, that's a tough one because most of the best waves around the world, unfortunately, that are really consistent and good are lefts, and I want to go right. So yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. Somewhere with the really big, windy side shore, side offshore right hander would be ideal. I don't know where that is, but I don't know. Maybe Hokipa, something like that.
Very cool.
Yeah, be good. So yeah, organize that and I'll show up.
Deal. We'll talk to the team over there. Well, thanks so much for your time. I know you got other things to do, work, kids. So thanks so much. I know you're gonna.
As
I tell everyone they're gonna hesitate a little more next time I call to pick up the phone, just in case. But hopefully, we'll have you back on for a impulsive interview once again. But yeah, thanks again for everything, Sky. Always good seeing you, and yeah, hopefully we'll get to reconnect soon.
yeah, thanks a lot, John. Yeah, take it easy. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye.
Yeah.